This is the CNC Router Tips Podcast, episode number 14. This is the CNC Router Tips Podcast, a show which answers one question from you, the listener, about CNC router tables, CNC software, hardware, web hosting, and business. I'll help you get started in your CNC hobby or business and help you cut through the confusion.
Today's episode is sponsored by TheMakersGuide.com. The Maker's Guide. Useful tools for makers.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the CNC Router Tips Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Griggs. One of the things that always comes up when you talk about CNC router tables is whether you can make a business using a CNC router table. And to me, this is a no-brainer, but when I take myself back to the Bill that was first making his first CNC, I realize that this question is not quite as simple as it looks at first for most people. And so recently there was a post in the Facebook group, the CNC Router Tips Facebook group, asking just that question. And I thought for a change that I would let you hear what many of the other people in the group had to say on the subject. Now, our group is made up of over 1,500, pretty close to 1,600 right now, members from all over the world. We have people here from the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Norway, Russia. We have people here from the Middle Eastern countries, Japan, China. We have people from all walks of life, Australia, and New Zealand. And many of them took the time to answer this question. And I'm just going to read the question with the person's first name and their response of all the members of the group and whether or not they are using their CNC for business. Jeff asked, quick question. For those with a CNC, are you using it just for hobby or are you actually making money like a business? What things are popular for your business? Any feedback info you'd like to share would be much appreciated. I'm trying to determine if I can actually make money at this. Thanks all. So some of the members of the private Facebook group responded to Jeff, and I'd like to read you the answers that they came up with. Miguel said, both. Just starting with the business end of it, so I still have to see what works and what doesn't. I'd like to hear from others as well. Brian said, I have an X-Carve and I'm a hobbyist. I just got it about 3 months ago. I'm selling stuff, lathe work, pens, bottles, stoppers, and etc., and cutting boards for about 4 years, primarily to support the hobby. Now that I have a CNC, I'm finding that without even trying, I'm getting more orders than I can handle on a part-time basis. Jesse said, I'm mostly using mine to do etchings and engravings to add value to the circus equipment I build. Aside from that, without having marketed it at all, I'm getting requests for signs and plaques, and I've got a list of gift items I want to churn out for the Christmas season. Butch said, personalized inlaid cutting boards. It's not a full-time business yet. I do sell a lot of them. Richard said, I use it for both, but I've spent more than I've made. Laugh out loud. If you don't have a fast and strong machine, you will not make any money. Jenny said, we've sold mostly to folks we know. The area we live in, folks just don't want to pay the price, and compared to what I've seen on here regarding the pricing, we are extremely cheap for the quality of work that we do. We're hoping to relocate to a better area by next year at the latest, which should help. I think a lot of it is who you know, where you're set up, and getting your product out there. marketing, whether at the booth or a craft show, etc., for others to see for a repeat customer base. Of course, word of mouth is always a great resource for repeat business. Those are our goals. Steve said, "It's a money-making hobby for me, all local, via Facebook page only. No Etsy, eBay, or anything like that. Word of mouth and zero advertising dollars spent keep me very busy. Full-time job? For me, no way. Extra spending money? Heck yeah. I've easily made back my investment and will be getting Aspire shortly to expand my product base. There's dozens of CNC users on Etsy, so I haven't even tried to break into that market, but my local area has been very good to me." Brandon says, "I bought my first CNC to make products for my business faster. By hand taking a week, by CNC a day. It's my best employee." Michael says, "The great thing about a CNC, when it's running, you have time to do other shop tasks, like clean, paint, program, assemble, sales, setting up another CNC, or just watching a game on TV. It will always be your number one employee." Chris agreed with Michael, and he said, "That's true. With Mach 3, you can stop and start. Unlike 3D printers and laser cutters, you can't stop it in the middle. If for any reason it gets interrupted, you have to throw away your product and start all over." One member said, "I started using CNC like 6 years ago just to make new models for my aluminum casting business. And then someone asked me if I could do this or that. And since then, I made a business out of it." Dave says, "My wife was hoping I would make money with the CNC, but alas, I don't. I find that I enjoy making products for friends and family much more than making projects for paying customers. I get quite a few requests, but I decline 80% of them because I have personal projects going that I don't want to move to the back burner. I'm a hobbyist woodworker and want to keep it a hobby. I use the CNC almost every day to do things, and I would have done with other tools in the past, and to do things I couldn't do any other way. And there are plenty of opportunities to make money with the CNC. It's just not the direction I choose to go. And I'm fortunate. I don't need to." LA says, "I'm making aluminum gas caps, soap molds, and some simple signs to sell." Okay, so there you have it. In the words of some of the members of the CNC Router Tips Facebook group, about their personal opinion and experience about whether you can make a business using a CNC router table. And the overwhelming majority of the people say yes. Now, most of those people, if not all, are creating side businesses which provide additional income for themselves. Very few people are full-time using these machines, although there are quite a few professionals in the group who do exactly that. They have multiple machines and that full machine shop and even employees. There are a lot of cabinet makers in the group. There are a lot of people who make furniture and other things using CNC router tables. So the range of experience, the range of income, the range of dedication, and all of this varies across the board. You know, for some people, they only want to generate, a little money to cover their expenses for their hobby. And they're really not overly concerned with forming a formal business. There are others who would like to make this a business. So, people like myself who are either going from one career or retired or have decided that they would like to do something different and they'd like CNC to be a big part of that. Well, they approach it differently than someone who, for instance, is just planning to do it for friends and to give gifts because it's a hobby. And there is no one right way of doing this because each one of us is different, has different needs. So if you're sitting on the fence and wondering, can I take a CNC router table and build a business around it? In my opinion, the answer is yes. You can. Will it be easy? No. Will it be very fast? Not necessarily. Will it be wildly lucrative? Depends on how hard you work it. All of these answers really depend on you. There are no guarantees in the business world. You could open a franchise, a popular restaurant franchise, for instance. Let's take Subway, for instance. You could open a Subway, and if you don't follow their plan to the letter, you will not be successful. If you follow their plan to the letter and you have a good location and you have good employees and you do everything correctly, you should make money with a Subway. Because it's a franchise. They've worked out the systems behind how to make sandwiches and how to sell them. Okay? So you have to approach any business like that. You have to determine the systems and the practices, the things that are going to make your business successful. You have to pay attention to details like, are you required to collect tax? Are you required to have insurance? Lots of other things. Are you required to list your company as a company? Are there filing requirements? There's a lot of questions out there about business that you need to look into if you're considering doing this on more than just a every once in a while type of venture. So if you don't have any experience with business, how do you learn? Well, the best way to learn anything is from someone who's already doing business. And since many of you will not have a giant nest egg to dip into in order to start a business, you might want to look into areas where you can learn as much as you want about business for free. And one such area is through your local Chamber of Commerce. There is an organization that's nationwide here in the United States called SCORE. Now, it used to stand for the Service Corps of Retired Executives, I believe. I'm not sure if they still go by that name or they're just known as SCORE now. But it's people who've been in business. They've had their successes. In most cases, they've built large to medium-sized businesses, small businesses. And they have decided to dedicate their time to helping others to learn the proper way to form businesses. And if you contact your local Chamber of Commerce, they can put you in contact with a SCORE chapter near you. Almost every major city has one. Many times they'll be affiliated with colleges and universities, or sometimes they'll be affiliated with incubator spaces and things like that. And they will offer classes, some at no cost, some low cost, which will teach you things like how to set up QuickBooks, or how to advertise, how to write a business plan. Do you need a business plan? Do you need insurance? Do you need all of these things? SCORE can help you with those things. Now, also, in addition to that, there are a variety of online sources. One of my favorite online sources is from another entrepreneur who has built a pretty successful business, and his name is Pat Flynn. He runs a podcast and a blog called the Smart Passive Income Podcast, and it is fantastic. If you've never listened to it, you should. Pat doesn't hold anything back. He lists all of his income and expenses right there where anyone can look to see what he's generating. He's currently generating about 130,000, 114,000, depending on the month, a month from online businesses. So he's obviously he's a pretty successful source of information about forming businesses and passive income. If you're into books, there's a very good book called The $100 Startup by Chris Guillebeau. Chris Guillebeau wrote this book that chronicles several people who took very little money and built businesses and incomes from them. So the point of this is there's nothing special about the CNC router business. It's a business. And the practices and the principles of doing business in any other industry can be applied to the CNC router. And, there is no magic. You have to roll up your sleeves and do the work. You have to take action. You have to have a plan and decide. Because if you don't plan, you will fail. It's just very simply, there's those who fail to plan to fail. So with all this talk about building a business with your CNC router table, it all comes down to one question that you're going to have to answer. And only you can answer this. It's, what do you want? What do you want from the CNC? What do you want from life? What will make your vision, your dream come true? If you're trying to use the CNC router table for a business, then only you know how much money that you need and want and desire to make your life changed. And that's what this is really all about, is making a change in what you're doing right now. Because nobody starts a business just to start a business. They start a business to make change or to realize some dream or to fill some need that wasn't met. So what is that for you? You have to go and define that. You have to figure out, what's your number? How much are you trying to make with your machine? And once you've figured that out, we can work everything backwards from there. It's very simple. But you need to know what you want. And that takes thought, that takes effort, and that takes a little bit of self-analysis to try and figure out. And, there are books and there are tapes and that sort of thing that could help you figure that out. But it really comes down to you taking the action of sitting down one day with a pen and paper and figuring out what it is that you want, what it is that you need from, a CNC business. And once you know that, everything else is just systems and action. So I hope this episode helped you realize that, yes, people are out there making businesses with the CNC router tables. And yes, some are even making livings with the CNC router tables. Are there any CNC router table millionaires? I bet there are. If you fit that category, I'd love to hear from you. I know a lot of people who are making at least six figures with their CNC router, but their results are not typical. I'm not promising anything, and there's nothing that I can wave some magic wand to help you generate six figures with your CNC router table today. But I can help you analyze what steps you might have to do in order to build up to large results. Because essentially everything in business is doing one thing that gets a result and then repeating it over and over and over again. One thing to keep in mind is that before you can figure out the how, you need to figure out the why. I'd like to read to you just an excerpt from the book, The $100 Startup by Chris Guillebeau. This is in this section called Stumbling Onto Freedom. And he says, "If I needed money, I learned to think in terms of how I could get what I needed by making something and selling it, not by cutting costs elsewhere or working for someone else. This distinction was critical because most budgets start by looking at income and then defining the available choices. I did it differently, starting with a list of what I wanted to do and then figuring out how to make it happen. The income from the business didn't make me rich, but it paid the bills and brought me something much more valuable than money: freedom.
Today's episode is sponsored by The Maker's Guide, creator of the Triple Edge Finder. Get the edge you need, save time and frustration on your CNC project, and make setup a snap. Save time and material. Set up your workpiece on your CNC router table faster than ever. Accurately set your Z-axis height first time, every time. Automatically locate the corner or edge of a workpiece. Repeatably reset your starting point in the middle of a program. Quality crafted right here in the USA on US-made CNC machines. Get the edge you need today. Go to www.themakersguide.com/edge. The Maker's Guide. Useful tools for makers.
Thank you, everyone in the CNC Router Tips Facebook group that took the time to answer this question about whether people could make money building a business with a CNC router table. I think that your answers really helped a lot of people realize just some of the possibilities that are out there. We're going to be examining more business-related questions over the next few episodes of the podcast with interviews and questions from our fans. So if you are at all interested in doing business with a CNC router table, I think you owe it to yourself to listen into the next few episodes. We're all going to learn something from that. I often mention many different types of software during the episodes, and hardware and cutters, and it can get a little confusing. So what I did was I put together a page on my website, cncroutertips.com/resources. And on that page, I list all sorts of resources there, from books to tools to software, all the things that I use that make my CNC experience better and easier. And I hope you'll check it out. So again, it's cncroutertips.com/resources. Now, if you'd like to have your question featured on the air, here's how. Need help? Ask me about your CNC router question on my podcast, the CNC Router Tips Podcast. I'll be glad to help or try and get you the help you need. I want this podcast to be a fun and personal experience for everyone, and helpful. So let's keep it real and ask sensible questions. Please use common sense and show courtesy to everyone. That way everybody wins. Here are some guidelines to ensure that your question is qualified to be featured on the show. Please keep your questions under 1 minute in length. If it goes a little over that, that's fine, but don't ramble. If you have a website and URL, you're allowed to share it, but only once during the recording. Spammy or disrespectful or deeply private questions will not be considered for the podcast. If you need to ask more than one question, just make each question a separate voicemail. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in and listening to the CNC Router Tips podcast. If you'd like to join our free mailing list, you can go to cncroutertips.com, and there's a link right there on the top of the page which tells you how to do that. Thank you so much, and have a great day.